Good morning, one and all present here. On behalf of the School of Commerce and Management, it is indeed my privilege and pleasure to welcome the chairperson for the technical session, Dr. Muthuswamy, Assistant Professor from Muhammad Sadar College of Engineering. Now I would like to call upon Dr. R.S. Anantharajan to introduce the chairperson for the day. Thank you.
Good morning to all and all present here. On behalf of the School of Commerce and Management, it is indeed my privilege and pleasure to introduce our chairperson for today's technical session, Dr. R. Muthuswamy, Assistant Professor, the head of the Department for Computer Application in the Muhammad Sadar College of Arts and Science, Sholinganallur. He completed his graduation and post-graduation in commerce from Kamaraj University, MPhil from Periyar University, and MBA from Bhadayar University, Coimbatore. Dr. R. Muthuswamy has specialized in human resources management and finance and got awarded 11 PhD degree from Dravidian University and from University of Madras. He also qualified UGC NET and GRF in June 2002. Dr. Muthuswamy has published 12 research papers in UGC research journals, and also he presented 13 papers in various conferences conducted by educational institutions. He organized various workshops, seminars, and FDP program in college. Sir, we are very much honored and glad to welcome you, sir, in this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anantharajan, sir. Now, as a member of editorial committee, it is my duty to brief about the conference to the participants who have joined today. The success of the conference relies upon the number of delegates participating in the conference. The editorial committee has really achieved a pinnacle in terms of huge number of participants for this conference. A total of 302 participants have contributed to the success of this conference, out of which 127 papers are authored and co-authored by 260 participants. These participants are from 61 colleges, which belong not only from various districts from Tamil Nadu, but also from the other states such as Uttarakhand, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Bangalore, Hosur, Pondicherry, to name a few. This success is a result of the tireless and persistent efforts of our committee members for nearly 6 months. As a result, we are in a position to publish proceedings in both hard copy and soft copy on the day of conference itself. Many papers are published in UGC Care Group 1 journals, and some papers are selected to be published in Web of Science, Scopus, and Emerald. With great effort and hard work to satisfy the participant requirements, we have done our level best to keep up to your expectations. Now, I would like to request Dr. Anantharajan to felicitate our chairperson for the day, Dr. Muthuswamy. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to request Dr. Muthuswamy to speak some few words to conference. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, every one of you. First of all, I thank the management and Department of Commerce and Management Stocks and HODs for giving me the opportunity. It is a great honor for me. So I'm very happy to be here. So I thank to once again to all of you. So here today conference regarding on contemporary issues in commerce and management. So the innovation is very need to all the sectors. Innovations only to correct the mistakes of past because updation is very important. In commerce and management, updation is very important. So this conference is very useful to update both the discipline. So be very happy. I congratulate to all the participants and the presenter today papers. I congratulate to our management HODs and the staffs for grand success of this event. Thank you. Thank you.
Now we can start the session. Participant, Tilaravati.
Good morning. I'm sharing my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can start.
Thank you so much. The title of the paper is Implications of COVID-19 on Business Functions of MSME Organization and Empirical Investigation. Introduction. MSME, they are the drivers of the emerging economy. In India, they contribute about 28% to the GDP and they employ 11.1 crore people. World over, 90% of the businesses and greater than 50% of all jobs are given by MSME, which is micro, small, and medium enterprises. Problem statement. This study, it focuses on the impact of COVID-19 on the various business functions in MSME, and it also examines the factors that are responsible for the impact under each business function. Objectives: to understand the impact of COVID-19 on the various business functions inside an organization, to understand specific operational problems faced by the functions, and to identify suggestions for the revival of the sector. Research questions: what is the impact of COVID-19 on various functions of MSME organizations? Classify the problems with respect to the functions. What are the suggestions that could be made to recover from the situation? Need for the study. Why the study at this time? The COVID pandemic has had an unprecedented shocking effect on economies globally. The manufacturing sector, and in particular, MSME sector, is one of the hardest hit by the pandemic. MSME are the backbone of any developing economy, and the contribution towards the economy is high. Therefore, this study at this time is very relevant. Review of literature. MSME's weakness in being competitive is caused by weak marketing, HR practices, capital, and funds flow. 50% of MSME in India incurred a loss of 20 to 25% in the fiscal year 2021. The working environment got altered in the pandemic, and the benefits, values, and beliefs in the employees got altered. Employee engagement has decreased, and HR policies need to be set in place to counter this. This is our research model. The various business functions are the constructs. Research methodology. It is an exploratory research. The sampling was snowball sampling. A web-based questionnaire was developed. The sample size was 45. Overall, Cronchback alpha value for the instrument is 0.95 and the individual Cronchback alpha value for each of the constructs is also given. These are the various analyses which were done. I will take you one by one. The mean value for constructs. This was done in order to find out the most significant variables under each business function. Independent t-test. This was connected to see whether there is a significant difference between the gender of the person handling the business function and the impact of COVID. And our conclusion is that there is no significant difference. ANOVA. ANOVA was done to determine whether there is homogeneity between the type of company, that is micro, small, or medium, and the impact of COVID on the business functions. Our conclusion is that there is homogeneity. Correlation. Correlation was done to see whether a relationship exists between the business functions inside an organization. And our conclusion is that there is a significant relationship between the business functions within an organization. These are the correlation values. Multiple linear regression was carried out, and this is the equation. Overall impact of COVID-19 on the business. And R and R-square values are also given. Conclusion. This study proves that the impact of COVID-19 on the MSME sector is shockingly high. MSME sector needs to strengthen and concentrate on all aspects of business functions like human resources, marketing, and purchase, which are usually neglected, and not just concentrate on production and finance as is traditionally done. This study instrument was found to be highly reliable, and this instrument can be used in specific industrial sectors. MSME needs to concentrate on the key indicators that needs to be taken care under each business function in order to be able to have a smooth sailing in these uncertain pandemic times. Recommendations. We recommend multiple vendors, elimination of non-performing products and services, reduction and overstocking of inventory, new marketing channels, and new promotional schemes. Digitalization of the sector will make it simple and highly effective. Increasing satisfaction, keeping up motivation, and increasing the employee engagement. Support from the government is essential for the revival of the sector. Andhra Pradesh has already come up with their scheme Restart. And hopefully in the near future, Tamil Nadu also will come up with such schemes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam. So your presentation is very good. Clearly you explain your study. So I have an
Sir, you're not very audible. Can you speak louder, please?
Yes, madam. So I think your sample size 45 is enough, ma'am. Enough to conclude.
We actually sent out 50 questionnaire and we got 45
Because
usable.
Because
And
personally is a biggest one. So I think the sample size 45 is not enough to come to conclude, you know, ma'am.
come to a conclusion. Sir, we actually tried increasing the sample size, but because of the COVID impact, businesses were in dire conditions and a lot of people were not willing to respond. And that is in fact the reason why we went for snowball sampling. We went through references, and thus even if the sample size is low, just 45, but we can be rest assured that the people who actually participated were interested in giving us the information, and hence the data would be coherent.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. All the best, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
The next presenter, Amrita, P. Amrita.
Yes, sir. Good day, sir. 1 second. 1 second, sir. Please.
Ma'am.
Few minutes, sir. I'll try to share my.
Present your paper, Amrita. You can start.
Sir, next participant can present, sir. I will join soon, sir.
Okay, ma. Okay. Next, sir.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
The next participant, K. Shiny. K. Shiny, are you there? Hello?
Yes.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Yeah,
Sir?
good morning. Yes, good morning, madam. We'll start.
Yes. Sir. Sir, 1 minute, please wait. Good morning, sir. This is Dr. K. Shiny, Assistant Professor, Sri Prince Venkateswara Arts and Science College, Gaurivaga. I thank AM Jain College to give a chance to present the paper in the international conference. Now I am going to present my paper on topic consumer satisfaction towards online banking services with a special reference to Tamara. India cannot have a healthy economy without a sound and effective banking system. All banks are going for information technology-based solution. We are all using online banking services in our daily life. Today, most of the banking transactions can be done from our comfort of one's home, and customers need not visit banks or bank branch for anything. The application of online banking in India has reduced the traditional banking with manual operations. Statement of the problem. The use of online banking services have many beneficiaries, both rural and urban areas. Online banking provides the ability to manage bank accounts over the internet using a computer or mobile device. The present study aims at finding out how far the online banking services have influenced the customers. Therefore, I have chosen the topic of the present study as follows: customer satisfaction towards online banking services with special reference in Tambara. Objectives of the study: to know the levels and awareness of online banking services, to know the awareness of online banking services of bank customer, to examine the awareness and application of online banking services, to understand the choice of bank customers and their satisfaction. I framed the following research questions to collect the respondents. Are customers satisfied with online banking services offered by banks? Are customers aware of online banking services? What is the customer's levels using online banking services? What are the factors that determine customers' choice of online banking services? What are the problems and risks the customers face in using online banking services? Need for the study. The research paper is of great importance, especially for in banking industry. With knowing the awareness and satisfaction of online banking enables the bankers to cope up the problems of customers. Customer satisfaction with regard to any services offered greatly exceeds the expectation of customers, and then satisfaction will be elevated. So, through this study, various factors that affect customer satisfaction while using online banking services has been identified. Hypothesis of the study: there is no significant difference between gender, marital status, education, family type, and residual status, and levels of awareness of online banking services of bank customers. Methodology: so both primary and second data collected. For collecting primary data, interview schedule was prepared and administered. Secondary data, then I had collected the things from the magazines, journals, and somewhere. The sample taken for the study was 150 bank customers. The sampling method adopted for the study was convenient sampling. Framework of analysis: statistical techniques were used for the study, weighted average method and chi-square test. Then findings. the demographic factors and the awareness of online banking, there is a significant difference between gender and marital status, education, and the types of banks and residential status, and the levels of awareness of online banking services. It is info that the more to do with the awareness of banking services as far as the sample respondents are concerned. Difficulties faced in opening bank accounts. The inquiry made with regard to the difficulties faced in opening bank account, 20% have responded with the more formalities, 4% felt that they find difficulty in fulfilling the minimum account, 21% with the introducer, 37% with the delay in opening account, 10% with the poor customer services, and 8% with the other common unspecified reasons. However, delay in opening and bank account is considered with the major problem. The comparison between the awareness and application of online banking services. The awareness of the online banking and the application is more in case of mobile banking at the tune of 100%, which is followed by ATM services and access to loan statement to the extent of 97%. Smart card technology is 96%. Anytime banking 96%. Check status inquiry 93%. Credit and debit card 91%. The awareness and application of online banking services used in banking transactions are presented to the satisfaction of the sample respondent. Choice of online banking of bank customers. Weighted average scores towards awareness of online banking services of bank customers. Various constraints varies from automated teller machines, safety, location, better services, low interest, nearness, ideas of friends and family, attractive packages, and more schemes. It is concluded that the sample respondents have the selection of banks out of their own choice and understanding rather than the idea of others. Limitations of the study. The study was conducted only a limited number of beneficiaries of banks. The cooperative banks were purposely omitted as they are no technological application. Only a limited number of banking customers were interviewed and therefore the results cannot be generalized. Suggestions of the study. The present study basically aimed at finding out the satisfaction of banking services on customers in relation to the use of online banking, core banking, mobile banking, ATMs, credit cards, debit cards. But an exhaustive study covering website security, technology risk, fraud detection mechanism, fraud prevention, security awareness, information security, monitoring mechanism, crossing the boundaries can be conducted. The present study is only confined to Tambaram area in Chengalpattu district alone. The study can be extended further on the state level or national level. Conclusions. A proper awareness and application of online banking services would enhance this area a lot, and it would bring a greater and more satisfaction of bank customers. Hence, the proper adoption and application of technology plays a vital role in modern banking industry to have a bright and successful future. The sample respondents with regard to the satisfaction of online banking services have a positive impact to the bank customers. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello,
Yes, sir.
Hello.
I'm Mohammed Tahim from New
Sir.
College.
Yes, wait.
Mr. Mohammed.
Shall
Mr.
I?
Mohammed Khan, please. Sir. Still the session is not over. Wait, please. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, sir. I am in line. Muhammad Salim.
Okay, madam.
Sir. Sir.
Hello.
Hello, sir. I am Muhammad Salim.
Mohammed.
Yeah.
Salim, please be
Yes, sir.
waited, sir. Please be waited, sir. We will call you shortly, sir. Please be waited.
Okay, okay.
Shiny, are you there?
Sir, good day.
Are you there, ma'am? Shiny, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, there's a very good presentation, ma'am.
Sir.
All the best.
Sir.
All the best, ma'am.
Sir, your voice is not audible, sir.
Yeah, all the best, ma'am. Very good presentation.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to mention the awareness about the online banking services.
Okay.
Yeah, which method is best for the public, ma'am? So why not you mentioned in the conclusion
Uh,
the specialized mode of awareness. The specialized
yeah,
mode
yeah,
of
yeah,
awareness.
sir. Actually, once the awareness, because of if they are having awareness in that banking services, they are highly satisfied. So that I can check with that whether they are awareness based on the awareness, they can apply it or not. If they are based on awareness, if they are applied, they are highly satisfied because of most of the persons not aware in the banking technology, banking services. So that if they have aware, so all the things, so many factors are included in that my questionnaire. So if they are all the things, if they are aware that, they can apply for that. So in that I have the weighted average method. I elaborately I did. So what are the awareness of something? So if based on that, if they are applied, so they are highly satisfied. So if they are not applied, they are not. So that I mentioned like that, sir.
Okay, madam. Okay, thank you, ma'am. All the best.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir, good day, sir. This is Amita. Can I proceed, sir? Yes, sir.
Are you ready with your presentation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Okay, good day to one and all present here. I am Amrita, research scholar in PhD Commerce and faculty of MCOM Accounting and Finance, belongs to Vaishnav College. My study is about a study on digital competency among senior citizens with reference to Chennai City. It comes under the broad category of customer relationship management and keen insight into that user experience management. So introduction now, according to that, digital competency is the skill, passion, knowledge, and attitudes that enable the confident, creative, and critical use of technologies and systems. Senior citizens are quite aware of the transformation in the style of connecting to the world over the past 2 decades. From pen, paper, and physical visits to relatives, visiting bank and face-to-face talks, it is essential for the senior citizen community to adhere to the fast-growing technological world, communicate with their family, friends, and relatives, and also to adapt the present lifestyle in all day-to-day requirements. Before the advent of keypad, a mobile iPhone, and smart TV, iPads, and other devices, the senior people used pen paper exam communications to entertain themselves with what was relayed in the cable TV, and they miss out on their children and grandchildren who stays far away. But after the advent of the more intuitively designed technology devices such as touchscreen smartphones with internet access connects their world through their palm-sized friend, right from morning alarm to nighttime stories, music, learning to chant slokas, to kitchen hints, watching old movies and songs, online doctor consultation to order food on their day-to-day needs. They are very keen to find their childhood friends through Facebook and stay with pride to share their memories. But most of the elders are fearful to operate the digital devices and reluctant to learn because they lack the confidence to remember the steps to operate the devices, or they fear troubleshooting the defects, repairs, or changes in their learn operation process. They fear being shouted or disguised by others when they find any difficult to use. Review of literature. Among my literature, many books reviewed. This is the foremost thing focused on this study. This research done by Stephen Foster and Amanda Pangle in 2017. They focused on the continuation, adoption, and integration of modern technology into the daily lives of older individuals. Nowadays, the number of technological devices being used for communication and health monitoring is increasing exponentially. It is concluded that it's a must to encourage the development of better programs to enhance the technical knowledge of older adults with an aim of enhancing their function and improving their quality of life. The scope of the study: the senior citizen who contributed their major lives for the betterment of the society by all their services. In today's technological world, they cannot be refrained from connecting to their family and the world. Hence, the researcher focused to study their digital competence with respect to device handling and maintenance, adaptation to fast growing technology, safeguard their information when they seek help from others. The study focused on digital device using senior citizen living in city. Research methodology adapted is that structured research instrument questionnaire was divided into 3 parts. First part aimed at demographic profile of the respondents, and second part covers the questions on various aspects and elements in the user experience, and third part is to identify the challenges to use the digital devices. The questionnaire is developed on 5-point Likert scale, and the multi-response questions collected from 150 respondents. Objectives of the study. The core objectives is to study the demographic profile of the respondents, to know their competency with various popular applications, to understand the factors determining their digital compatibility, to locate the age group and their compatibility, to understand the challenges faced by senior citizens. The demographic profile of the respondents shows the age group of 60 to 64 is the dominant respondents. They belongs to the educational qualification 10th and 12th and PUC category. The most of the respondents are homemaker by occupation. They lived in joint family, and residential system is that independent house. The family members living in the same area. Abroad people, those children are living in abroad, has most exposure to the technical world compulsorily. The questionnaire is filled by mostly family members and friends, since they are not able to adapt that Google Forms like that. Okay. The weighted average analysis is used to identify the various applications in their everyday practices. YouTube is highly preferred and so quite friendly for them to use, and not much of the DigiLocker, and they are comfortable somewhat with the GPay and ATM, but other payment wallet are not popular among them. So weighted average analysis gives us the rank with that. First primary in YouTube and WhatsApp, followed by debit card, email and games, mobile banking, internet banking, Facebook, like that. Factors determining their digital compatibility. The KMO Barletta satisfied 0.813 is more than sufficient. It improves the sampling adequacy. So the factors divided on 12 variables consist of first factor named as comfortable to use. Second one, device operation. Then third factor is named as safeguard to their information and the secret privacy. Then fourth factor is divided into 5 variables as a confident to use. Age group and their compatibility, we checked with the cluster analysis. So cluster analysis is done based on age group of the respondents with derived factors. Age group of 60 to 64 are strong in device usage but seek guidance from others often. Age group of 65 to 69 are moderate competent, and age group of 70 to 74 are cautious to safeguard, but they prove that they are not extensively using all the applications, but limited use of device. People with age group of above 80 were very weak to adapt. So challenges faced by the senior citizens are difficulties to solve issues in connectivities, solving issues, device storage like that. Then they are feeling fear to secure, insecure to operate. Then hesitate to fever or shivering to use touch screen, the view size and the shifting of applications, etc. They find lack of knowledge, and they often forget the steps. So again and again they need to learn from the beginning, and they somewhat they are able to solve the issues. For others, dependent on solving other issues. So and they can their main interest is that they didn't learn properly for that. So due to the pandemic, it was compelled them for to enhance their technical assistance. Suggestion is that from the above inferences, it is clear that the senior citizens are less participative in digital world, as the various software are designed at a very high standard and with more and more options, which are not even fully utilized by youngsters. Hence, it is recommended to customize the applications to suit with minimum and required utilities, but to ensure their connectivity to digital world. Ensure their proper learning and basic knowledge for their efficient usage. To create awareness, the measures to safeguard them from digital scams and issues. It is concluded that from various analysis, it is found that respondents are more comfortable with YouTube as their best entertainer, and WhatsApp to make video calls, share pictures and videos, share in status, send reply messages, etc. The respondents are more comfortable to react with smiley than with words. Most of the respondents are lacking confidence to remember the step-by-step approach, and some of them reluctant to learn because of fear. The study can be extended to other parts of the states where the people are very less exposed to digital environment to ensure their connection with the present world. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ma. Amrita.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, madam. All the best, ma'am. Your presentation today is very good, ma'am. So you now mentioned a lot of statistical data in your paper. I congratulate you, ma'am. So I have two questions, ma'am. Now.
Yes, sure, sir. Sure. Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
A senior citizen, they suppose they want specialized competency, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
What kind of specialized competency they need, ma'am?
We can design the devices for them to use which are not applicable to or not relative to them, sir.
No,
Because we are finding.
So you're a
Sir?
data collection.
Yes,
So
sir.
what type of data you collected?
That their general opinion, open-ended question we collected, sir. So they given that opinion. Even they are finding difficult with the digital payment like the tax payment and the other PAN card link. All this also they find it difficult. That's
What type of specialized competency they want, ma'am?
Competency is that visibility of the screens are first one. Then the readability, the eyesight is very poor, so they cannot read the small fonts like this. And moreover, they find discomfort with a lot of unknown, that unwanted advertisements or this one promo messages are coming and disturbing us. And they are fear of sharing or clicking the any link because of the awareness program we created, sir.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you for your information.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Mohammed Salim.
Yes,
My
yes, sir.
Muhammad Tahir, sir, from New College. Shall I present, sir?
Mohammed Salim. Mohammed Salim. Are you ready with your?
Yes, sir. I am ready, sir. Mohammed Salim is ready.
Yes, sir. Muhammad Tahir is ready, sir.
Tahir, you please be waited, sir. First, Mohammed
Yes, sir.
Salim. Sir, you can start with your presentation. Sir.
Yes.
Mohammed Salim. Mohammed Salim.
Yes, sir. I am ready, but please ask last person to stop sharing, sir. Please ask the last participant. Okay, sir. It's okay now.
Sir, I'm not getting you, sir.
Sir, my screen is shared now.
Yes, sir.
Shared?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can continue.
Okay. Good afternoon, all of you. Myself, Muhammad Salim KC, Assistant Professor, Postgraduate in the Department of Commerce, Government College, Mattampally, Kerala. My topic is Going Green for Sustainable Development, a study on green business practices of restaurants. Okay. Introduction. Going green is the concept of reducing pollution and emission that lead to ecological imbalances and greenhouse on the planet. Recycle, reduce, and reuse are the three motto of Going Green concept. Green management practices take steps to minimize the effect of environment through various upgraded and modified green technology which are eco-friendly in all means. Some studies point out that 2 out of 3 and 1 out of 6 of every consumer in developed and developing countries, respectively, are green consumers. Green marketing evokes publicity towards green product and services among marketers and consumers in business and consumption habit. This problem, Kerala has globally attained a significant image for sustainable development more than 2 decades ago. The Kerala model development has captured the attention with respect to their social progress and peaceful social change. Kerala-based firms are exploring new avenues of sustainable development through their focus on going green. Green business houses take voluntary steps to ensure good environmental practices, promoting ethical and economic incentives to promote responsible attitude towards environment. Restaurants are the place where generating large amount of biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste daily, and also a place which consumes consuming huge amount of water and energy. So it is necessary to assess the current green business practices in restaurants and to suggest measures to improve them. Objectives are key objectives of the study: the identification of existing green business practices followed. Then the second one is study provides certain suggestions to tackle shortcomings of the practices followed, so as to follow some feasible eco-friendly practices. Methodology: the study was randomly selected 50 restaurants having substantial operation, which are randomly selected from 3 districts of Kerala, namely Kollam, Ernakulam, and Kannur. The 50 restaurants include 50 large-scale operators and 35 medium-scale operators from the selected segment. A self-assessment questionnaire was distributed among restaurants managers to analyze various eco-friendly practices followed by them in the restaurants. Assessment provide valuable inputs about environmentally sound practices followed by the restaurants in Kerala. Along with the self-assessment questionnaire given to the restaurant managers, the researcher also observed and analyzed various green practices at each restaurant before arriving at a conclusion. An observation is based on these criteria: water efficiency, waste reduction, recycling, sustainable furnishing materials, sustainable food, energy, disposables, chemical and pollution reduction, transparency and education. Then these are my analysis. In the case of water efficiency, even though most of the restaurants have a poor rainwater harvesting system, those with this facility are very efficiently using this harvested water for various purposes other than cooking. Low water landscaping practices were found in only 2 restaurants. Most of the restaurants are situated in shopping complex and near to national highways or along other major roads, and hence does not possess enough area for arranging low water landscaping system. Most of the restaurants promote rational use of water, and flow rates are regulated in kitchen sink, washing sink, and in restroom. Low consumption devices and flow reducers are installed everywhere. Then, even though the physical facility of wastewater treatment is installed in 80% of the restaurants, only 50% of them put into use, and among them, 30% of them are using recycled water for the purpose other than cooking. All the restaurants are regularly monitoring their rainwater harvesting system, pumping mechanism, flow regulators, and wastewater recycling plants, and ensure frequent maintenance. The restaurants managers are aware of the necessity of water treatment and water testing to check the level of contamination with the various microbes, which may lead to food poisoning, and are frequently practicing the same. It is recommended that all the restaurants must have a rainwater harvesting system and wastewater recycling plants. Most of the restaurants have automatic sensors to dispense water in wash area, but it's found to waste water for a few seconds after the use is over, and hence it is recommended to fix more efficient water dispenser and flow regulators. Then waste reduction and recycling. The major practices and concerns on this criterion are: all restaurants are segregating their waste and biodegradable and non-degradable in the origin itself. No restaurants have a technology to recycle non-biodegradable waste. Most of them have a contract with the outside agencies for disposing this waste. Only few restaurants have their own incinerators for disposing non-biodegradable waste. Most of the restaurants work in allied with pig farms and a firm making organic fertilizers for disposing organic food waste. It is observed that majority of the restaurants are providing disposable napkins to customers, and they are using it without any limits. Plastic and aluminum foil containers are also used tremendously. 7 restaurants have a tie-up with some charity organization for donating balanced food in good condition. It is found that a lot more could be done by restaurants with respect to their food waste management. They could use the services of an authorized waste management company for disposing and recycling of the food waste. And integrated waste management system is absent in the most of the restaurants. Restaurants may adopt strict policies while procuring items from the suppliers, and reusable containers and packages materials can be engaged for supplies. Parcel counters may use minimal packaging materials and promote the natural reusable containers for delivery. Latest innovations in natural food package materials and food service can also be adopted. Reusable towel and serving materials can be promoted. Then sustainable furnishing and building materials. The key points regarding sustainable furnishing and construction of houses are: all the restaurants are operating in long-lasting structures. Most of the construction in Kerala do not consider the available environmental resources, and hence mismatching with the concept of sustainability and conservation. This is the same with the restaurants under study. It is also observed that few restaurants are frequently renovating their interior and exterior styles. This may lead large volume of harmful waste, which has negative impact on the concept sustainability. No considerations given for sustainability or green practices while furnishing inside in the case majority of restaurants. It is suggested having a long-lasting structure while constructing building, and the government should implement strict rule and regulation for following sustainability while constructing building. Frequent renovations can be avoided so that hazardous waste of construction material can be reduced. Eco-friendly, long-lasting items can be purchased for furnishing inside restaurants. Then sustainable food. With respect to food sustainability, following practices are identified in restaurants. Traditional food are served in most of the restaurants, but there is no initiation from a restaurant side to use locally or seasonally available ingredients. No hotels have a preference to use organic farm fresh food ingredients, which avoid use of harmful pesticides, chemical fertilizers, and genetically engineered food crops. Artificial flavors, colors, chemicals, spots, and tastemakers are commonly used in all restaurants. Most of the chefs are not aware about the limit for using such food additive with the added preservative and chemicals. Food of animal origin and fish species are common in menus of all non-vegetarian restaurants. Overuse of meat product and overfishing are.
Mr. Mohammed Salim?
Yes, sir.
You come to suggestions and conclusion.
Okay. Come to conclusion as a whole, the study conducted within random samples of 50 restaurants throws light on existing practices that are followed in restaurants operations, giving due importance to various measures that can be adopted to enhance green practices in restaurants. A mandatory green certification and standard must be implemented in restaurant sector to maintain quality and sustainability. When new restaurants are issued license with mandatory green certification, the existing firm should be provided a stipulated time limit to shift themselves, achieve these standards. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed Salim. So your presentation voice is very good. We clearly explain your people. Your topic is related to restaurant in Kerala, Kerala.
You are not audible, sir. Sir? Hello? Hello, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
On business practices, restaurant in which area in Kerala?
Sir, I couldn't hear voice. It is not clear, sir.
Yes, okay. So you are not mentioned in your topic.
Yeah, Kerala. Okay, it is mentioned in the methodology side, sir. It is mentioned in methodology only. Scope of study.
Okay, so this is a particular area.
Yeah.
I asked you the question. You have collected 50 respondents, you know.
Yeah, 50 hotels.
50 respondents, the owner of the restaurant.
50 hotels. From these 50 hotels, I collected data from restaurant managers.
No. Where we bring the green restaurant? Where from? From customer side or owner side?
Owner side, sir. Owner side.
Yeah, I think your correct respondent is owner, you know.
Yeah, I took data from owner side, management side.
Okay. So you collected the data throughout Kerala state?
Yeah, three randomly states from Kerala. Kollam, Ernakulam, and Kannur.
Okay, your conclusion is eligible to apply all the states, no?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, any correlation is, any hypothesis is there, no? Because
Okay.
Kerala state respondent nature is variable, you know, one south to north, you know.
Yes.
Time you using hypothesis.
Okay.
Yeah, your paper less statistical tools you used.
Yeah, I didn't use any statistical tools.
Very good.
Okay.
I usually mention about your objectives in the conclusions.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next presenter, Mohammed Tahir Khan.
Yes, sir. Very good afternoon, sir, to one and all present here. Shall I please share my screen?
Yes. Yeah, how to show your screen. but we are not visible your screen.
Can you present your screen, sir?
Yes, sir. So I'm sharing my screen.
You're using your mobile
Not
phone?
visible.
Sir, are you using your mobile phone?
Yes, sir. My laptop was not connecting, so I used mobile, sir.
But try to have it in landscape mode, sir, so that it will be clearly visible over you.
Hello.
Hello, is it audible? Hello?
It's not audible, sir.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Your
Yes, sir.
voice,
Now I can hear you, sir. Yes, sir.
yeah, your voice is there, but visible. Your screen is not visible. I think you have to on your camera.
Hello.
Your video, you want to on your video. I think it's in menu.
Hello. My voice is not clear, sir. I'm not able to hear you.
No, your voice is clear, but you're not. I think video is not on. Sir, it is not yet shared.
Is it audible now, sir? Is it clear now?
You're absolutely audible, not a problem, but your presentation is not sharing here.
Is it sharing now, sir?
No, no.
Just a
It is
second,
not
sir.
sharing. Yes, 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 you can try on your end, sir. Yes.
Now, sir?
No. Yes, now it is clear, but this is fine, sir. This is fine. Okay, you can continue.
Yes, sir. So my topic is a meta-analysis on NABARD initiatives for reviving the root.
Sorry to interrupt, Mohammed, can you have in landscape mode?
Sure, sir.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. Fine. Thank you.
Okay, now clear.
Thank you, sir. So the topic is a meta-analysis on NABARD initiatives for reviving the rural economy in the post-pandemic scenario. And we all know that it is the pandemic time, and still the pandemic is going on, but it has slowed down a bit, and we are towards the endemic stage. So we think that it is post-pandemic scenario. And in the post-pandemic scenario, the rural economy, which was hit by the COVID-19 crisis, how can it be recovered in the context of NABARD, that is National Bank for Rural and Agricultural Development? What measures it can take to revive this agricultural economy? As we all know that the pandemic disrupted the economic setup in both rural and urban sectors, but our topic focused on the rural sectors. And in this research article, we conduct a meta-analysis to examine the initiatives taken by NABARD in setting up, in reviving the economic structure. So the review was conducted, and I have taken 3 important reviews. The first one is, it is the secondary data published in the annual reports of NABARD from the year 1983 to 2017. And based on the observation, it was found that the growth rate of refinancing performance of NABARD was slow and steady in all the schemes except one particular scheme, that is IRDP. The study also showed that there was no uniformity in the size of refinance disbursement. That is, NABARD was not uniformly allocating funds to various schemes. To some schemes, it was allocating more funds, to some schemes, no funds. So that was the one review. The second important review, which our study highlighted, was the researchers made an attempt to highlight the various measures. And hello?
Yeah, I go to methodology.
Okay. Objectives of the study, to analyze the various initiatives undertaken by NABARD to revive the economy in the current pandemic scenario, to review the important measures taken by NABARD in funding agricultural activities, to assess the implementation of important schemes by the government with respect to NABARD. And with regards to methodology, this paper is a review-based paper of meta-analysis, as the name suggests, and mainly secondary data has been used to review and conduct meta-analysis. Key figures and tabular columns have been extracted from NABARD annual report for the purpose of this study. APA style of referencing has been used. And key findings and discussion on this study was that to my surprise, to our surprise, my author's surprise, we found that many agricultural migrant workers, they have shifted from the rural, from the urban to the rural places, back to their homes, migrant workers. And this coincided with the harvesting season, Rabi crops harvesting season. So because of that, the agricultural sector performed well, actually performed well in the pandemic time. And NABARD had to adjust with this growth rate, sudden growth rate, because of seasonal migration of workers, leading to a manpower surplus in the native places. But meta-analysis revealed that the pandemic hit the economy despite the agricultural sector performing well. Okay, and the government of India encourages farmers in taking up some projects by subsidizing a portion of the total project cost. And in this regard, NABARD has been a channel partner of the government of India in some of the following schemes, such as New Agricultural Marketing Infrastructure, New Agricultural Marketing Infrastructure Sub-Scheme, National Livestock Mission, Employment Generation, Dairy and Entrepreneurship Development Schemes, Government Subsidy Scheme, Internet Subvention Scheme. So all these schemes are reinforced by the NABARD to revive the rural economy in the pandemic hit scenario. Okay, so the next one was, so climate change issues. We know very well the climate is facing a threat, and because of this, NABARD has sanctioned 17.5 crore. Now, the relationship between climate and the agricultural sector is very pertinent to note, because if the climate is good, if there is no abrupt rain and abrupt weather conditions, the agricultural sector can actually perform better. So NABARD is nowadays, it is focusing more on the ground level reality of addressing the climate changes. And it is also creating a resilient system for agricultural products, agricultural livestock to be there. So for this, it has sanctioned 17.4 crores over a 5-year project period to the Punjab State Council for Science and Technology. And then, in order to promote the liquid flow of in the current, because liquidity is very affected because of the pandemic time. So in order to promote liquidity, in order to push liquidity, they are they are extending their refinances to regional rural banks, short-term credit rural, and to other non-banking financial institutions and microfinance institutions. So my 3 suggestions are that there should be digitalization in the post-pandemic scenario of self-help groups, because self-help groups can actually reach, through their influence, they can actually reach the ground level, and they can work on the ground and implement the projects of NABARD, and also proper channelization of funds by proper uniform disbursement. Whichever projects require more funds, there should be more funds, but no project should be dried out of funds. So every project should be given uniform funding, and regional rural banks could be the turnaround factor. If we are able to develop or restructure the regional rural banks, then we can really boost the rural economy, because farmers depend on it. And then farmer-centric setup is required. This is very important. We cannot have the focus on agricultural economy without having a farmer-centric setup where farmers are given an inclusive approach to come and participate in reviving the rural economy. Their concerns are heard. Their loans are waived off. And however they want, whatever benefits they want, that should be given. So farmer-centric approach. And in the conclusion, this meta-analysis concludes with an intrinsically cautioned view that NABARD initiatives are not far reaching, sadly. They are not reaching the ground level, even though on paper they are putting out so many schemes. But whether it is reaching at the ground level, the answer is evidently no from the secondary data. And the rural economy was not contributing that well enough, despite agricultural sector performing well. Therefore, the measures taken by NABARD assisting the government aims to promote sustainable development, which is a mounting task unless an internal restructuring is made. Okay, it would also be really beneficial to test the viability and transparency, where the funds are coming from, how they are being used. So this transparency and accountability is needed. Hence, NABARD is a key which is going to unlock the fortunes of the rural economy. If you want the rural economy, then farmer-centric setup with the help of NABARD is very, very important. In tune with modern digital requirements, whatever online accessibilities, the support, the telecom support, along with that, if this has to be done, and if NABARD is going to be restructured and the funds are channelized properly, then definitely the rural economy will be boosted. And because of that, we can recover from the shock of the pandemic. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Very good presentation. Sir, are you using secondary data? No?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But NABARD announced a lot of statistical information in annual report 2021.
Yes, sir.
Regarding the rural development, rural
Yes,
economic
sir.
development. But,
Yes, sir.
You have mentioned
Yes, sir.
only is there in your paper.
Yes, sir. In my
Then,
paper.
yes, sir. Why not using the chart, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's a very good suggestion. Actually, I appreciate. In the paper, I have used few, but I didn't want to focus more on statistical part. I wanted to focus more on the ways or the idea behind reviving the rural economy. That's why I said it's a meta-analysis and not an analytical paper. But it's a very good suggestion, sir. Actually, which I think I should implement.
But statistical information announced by the NABARD 2021 in the annual report. But secondary data based, we can use the chart. No problem, sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
your presentation is good, sir. All the best, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Definitely, sir. That's a very good suggestion. I have used it in my paper. I thought because we have only 4 to 5 minutes, I cannot touch upon the deep statistical part. But since it is a meta-analysis, I thought of analyzing the idea behind reviving the economy by supporting few important statistics. And I didn't get into the analytical part of the figures.
Yes, because research is a medicine. We say to the students, we say to the student. No,
Yes,
sir?
sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
research is a medicine. So we have to give the right and clear medicines to the students for the particular problem.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Because the chart, we can easily understand the particular concept.
Yes,
so
sir.
that I asked the chart.
Yes, sir. Point taken, sir. Very valuable suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next participant, Sugapradayini. Sugapradayini.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Are you ready with your presentation, madam?
Yes, sir, sure.
You can proceed, madam. Thank you.
Is my screen is visible?
Yes, you can start.
Good morning to all. I'm Sugapradayini M. Pursuing second year Income Accounting and Finance. I'm author for the paper entitled A Study on Taxpayers' Perception of Adoption of E-Filing in Chennai City with special reference to individuals' opinion. Moving on to the introduction part. E-filing is the short form of electronic filing of income tax. Tax structure in developing countries is highly complex. Existence of high business rates, the diversity of tax, cascading of taxes, broad exemption and conception on numerous items, as well as a particular group of employees. This study aims to attempt to analyze taxpayers' perception of adaptation of e-filing in Chennai city with special reference to individuals' opinion. Objective of this study, the core objective is to know about the demographic profile of the respondents, to analyze about the acceptance factors of income tax return, to investigate about a personal factor that affects e-filing. Scope of the study. The scope of the study was to know about the perception of e-filing among individuals in Chennai city. The study will also help to know about the factor that influenced ITR. Limitations. The study is not free from limitation. The study period was limited to a month with 50 respondents and Chennai city was considered for a study. The final result of the research was declared based on the respondents' review, so it might be biased or uneven. Need of the study. The present research is carried out to investigate the perception of e-filing among individuals in Chennai city. This research will help to know about the influential factor in the perception of EITR. Review of literature. Dr. Angamuthu in 2014 has proposed the research on topic perception towards e-filing. The objective of the study was to compare the different perception towards e-filing of ITR among various group of taxpayer. The sample size of the study was 100, evaluated by convenience sampling. The study suggested that auditors can conduct a seminar workshop to create awareness about e-filing method. Research methodology. The paper was empirical in nature. The study was focused on both primary and secondary data. A well-structured questionnaire was framed and circulated among 50 individuals who were spotted in Chennai city. Secondary data was collected from websites, books, conference proceeding, and academic journal. Convenience sampling was used and a descriptive research design was utilized in this research. Percentage analysis, chi-square, and factor analysis were used as statistical tool and analyzed using SPSS. Moving on to the data analysis part, table shows the demographic profile of the respondents. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, come to the finding, madam. Finding and suggestions.
Okay. Our findings, majority of the respondents fell under the age group of more than 40. 54% of the respondents were male. 32% of the respondents were PhD holder. The majority of the respondents were self-employed. Specific finding, self-employed respondents thought that e-filing is important. 6 factors are identified with the help of factor analysis. These factors are performance-based factor, accomplishment-based factor, social influencing components, facilitating condition, faith-worthiness of internet, and intention factor. 29 variables were limited into 6 factors with the cumulative variance of 75.031%. These 6 factors separately have the variance of 75.031, 21.011, 13.648, 13.377, 9.599, and 76.45. Suggestion: e-payment gateway should be enhanced by the tax authority. An e-payment process should stimulate the taxpayers to go with cashless options. A double entry network should be assured with a strong software process. It must relate to GST TIN norms, referring to a PAN and collating between the savings and deposit for savings purpose, payment of insurance premium, donation, etc. These things should be organized to compute the appropriate tax liability and resist the notice savings. The account should reproduce the total receipt of income and total qualified savings or spending, which enough for a rebate and exemption. Government can conduct quizzes, discussion, conference, and workshop in schools and colleges to create an awareness to educate and stimulate the citizen about tax system in India. Essential adjustment should be given to search to computerized system that could be automatically grant reimbursement and compute interest related based on previous records. Conclusion: income tax is a significant segment of direct taxes. Income tax contains an important source of wealth for a government. Direct tax should have integrity such as clarity, visibility, power, and anti-inflammatory. It should have the factors of reason for the conclusion of the requirement. The present research was focused on the perception towards e-filing in Chennai city. Based on the findings of the study, individuals were influenced by the involvement of safety protocol of the internet, peers influence, user-friendliness of the website, and online transaction process. Hence, the study concludes that e-filing has built a positive perception among individuals in Chennai city. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Are you filed, ma'am? E-filing, are you filed?
Sir, I helped my father to return his file. Like I'm currently working on it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Very good presentation, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. The next presenter, Sandhya Savitri. Sandhya Savitri. Yes. Sandhya Savitri, are you there? The next presenter, Soumya Verma.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
You're audible. Are you ready with your presentation, madam?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Can you have your landscape mode, your mobile?
Sir, I'm Sandhya Savitri. I'm audible, sir.
No, your presentation is not. Sandhya Savitri, please wait, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Soumya Verma?
Yes, sir. I'm
Are you
ready.
ready with your presentation? Yeah, you please continue, ma'am. You please continue.
Okay, sure, sir.
Please share your screen, ma'am.
Sir, is it
Yes.
visible?
Yes, it is visible. You can continue. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Respected dignitaries and all persons gathered here, welcome you all to my presentation. I am Soumya Verma, doing PhD in Commerce at Maharajas College, Ernakulam, Kerala. My co-author, who is also my supervising guide, Dr. Suresh VN, Associate Professor in Commerce, Maharajas College, Ernakulam, Kerala. The topic of the study is Financial Access of Micro and Small Enterprises, an evaluative study on Mudra. In a developing country like India, micro and small enterprises have a lead role in the economic development. At the same time, lack of financial support became a major challenge to them. In order to remove the financial problems of micro and small enterprises, Government of India has launched the scheme Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana on April 8, 2015. It is a lead scheme of the government which aimed at the creation of entrepreneurial culture among the poor. The scheme has three categories of loan: Shishu, which covering loans up to rupees 50,000; Kishore, covering loans above rupees 50,000 and up to rupees 5 lakh; and Tarun, covering loans above rupees 5 lakhs and up to rupees 10 lakh. Problem statement and need of the study. The studies on the contribution of Mudra Yojana in the entrepreneurship development are poor. As creation of entrepreneurial culture in collaboration with partner institutions become the Mudra mission, the contribution of such institutions needed to be analyzed more deeply. As micro and small enterprises have a major role in the development of entrepreneurship, it is relevant to analyze the role of Mudra scheme on the entrepreneurship development in India. The first objective of the study is to study the performance of Mudra on the entrepreneurship development in India. In order to evaluate this objective, number of Mudra loan accounts opened to new entrepreneurs, amount sanctioned, and amount disbursed under the scheme to new entrepreneurs are analyzed. The figures used have been collected from the annual reports of Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, and the collected data have been evaluated using percentage analysis and compounded annual growth rate method. By analyzing the number of Mudra loan accounts opened to new entrepreneurs, it is clear that the Shishu scheme has the highest share, and the contribution of Kishore and Tarun schemes shows an increasing trend. About the amount sanctioned to new entrepreneurs, overall proportion of the amount sanctioned to new entrepreneurs shows a linear decreasing trend. About the amount disbursed, the share of new entrepreneurs in the total amount disbursed is acceptable, though not outstanding or perfect. By comparing the amount of Mudra loan sanctioned and disbursed in the year 2015-16 and 2019-20, the compounded annual growth rate shows the almost same percentage. The second objective is to assess the contribution of partner institutions in the disbursement of Mudra loan. In order to evaluate this objective, number of Mudra loan accounts initiated by various partner financial institutions are analyzed. The data have been collected from the annual reports of Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, and it have been evaluated using Kruskal-Wallis H-test. From the descriptive statistics computed, it is found that the distribution of data is not normal. So, for testing whether the partner financial institutions affected the number of Mudra loan accounts opened, the Kruskal-Wallis H-test was performed, and the hypothesis being the distribution of Mudra loan accounts opened is the same across the partner institutions. As the p-value is less than the significance level, the null hypothesis was rejected and inferred that each financial institution is different in offering Mudra loan. About the limitations of the study, this study is purely based on secondary data. So the scope of the study is limited to secondary data on Mudra Yojana available. And the validity of such secondary sources also become a constraint. About the suggestions, even though the Mudra scheme has a successful result in its initial periods, the amount disbursed needed to be improved. And in addition to that, the ceiling limit, that is rupees 10 lakh, it is to be upgraded so that the entrepreneurs can get sufficient loan amount. Thus, the study arrived at a conclusion that entrepreneurship development has been achieved through Mudra Yojana to some extent. Thank you all for your kind attention in my presentation. Thank you.
Soumya Verma.
Yes, sir.
The reasons for why the financial assets is going to down in Kerala.
Sorry, sir.
So your chart is there. You
Yeah.
have to compare 3 years financial accessibility from the Mudra scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chart is going to down. Reason why?
Sorry, sir. The amount of a loan is decreasing. That's why you asked that.
Yeah, why decreasing? Why going to decreasing? Any reasons?
Major problem is the lack of awareness about the scheme and the lack of promotion by the financial institutions, as the Mudra scheme has no collateral securities. So partner institutions are not much promoting this scheme. That may be a reason.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. The next participant, Sandhya Savitri.
Yes, sir. I'm audible, sir.
Yes, you are audible. With your presentation.
Just a minute, sir.
Can you share this? Yes. I'm kindly use your landscape mode, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Sandhya Savitri.
Once again, sir. Is it okay with you, sir?
It is clear, ma'am. Thank you. You can continue, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, sir. So good afternoon to all. So thank you. First of all, I thank you for the AM Jain College for my paper presentation in this scenario. So I'm going to my paper presentation. So my topic is impact of GST on consumer goods and retail sectors with reference to the Madambakam in Chengalpattu district. So most of the researchers focus only on what is the problem faced to the consumer to pay the GST. But my topic is what is the problem faced on the what is the problem based on the retailers to pay the GST on behalf of the consumer? So there is a statement of the problem. So first GST should be in introduction. So what is the GST? So all of you know that. So what is the GST? The goods and service taxes. So retailers to know about the concept of the GST, what are the problems they are facing to pay the GST on behalf of the consumer. So first, what to be manufacturer will pay the GST on the behalf of the wholesaler. Then the wholesaler to pay the GST on the behalf of the retailer. Then retailer to pay the GST on the behalf of the consumer. So what is that? Input tax credit. So input tax credit is only what to be used the manufacturer and the wholesaler as well as the retailer. So input tax credit only is the claiming the credit of the GST paid on the purchase of the goods and service which are used for the furtherance of the business. So input tax credit is the backbone of the GST. So GST is a single tax levied across the India. So that is my problem. The statement of the problem is the introduction of the GST is considered to be a major tax reform in our country. So retailers have a main role in the supply of the goods. So cannot be exempted from the effects of the GST implementations. Then my objectives of the study: to know the goods and service tax applicable on retailers' consumer goods, to understand impact of goods and service tax on retailers' consumers goods, and compare the positive and negative impact of consumer service tax on. So are the retailer aware of the GST? What are the factors determining the performance of the retailers on the consumer goods? What are the problems faced by the retailers in the GST? Then, scope of the study. So the study relates to the awareness and the performance of various retailers which are used in the GST and its impact at Madambakam in Chengal district. Then the study will be helpful in describing how GST is leviable on the retailers and the consumer goods. The real problems are faced by the retailers in the present GST system. Need of the study. This research paper is very important, especially for the retailers of the consumer goods. So with knowing the awareness and performance of the goods and service tax among the retailers and the consumer goods. So through this study, various factors that affects consumer retailers goods in while using the goods and service tax has been identified. So this is the need of the study. Then hypothesis. There is no significant difference between the gender and marital status and education as the number of years within your business performance of the retailers, as well as the locality, as well as the turnover with the GST. Then what is the methodology? So described method is used for the study the impact of the GST on the retailer consumer goods. The primary data, the source of the data is both the primary and the secondary data. The primary data is collected through the mail questionnaire from the 100 retailers. Primary data of the study will be generated through the questionnaires with the retailers, and secondary data are collected from the various source of books and journals and website. Then the sample taken for the study was 100 retailers. The sampling of the method adopted by the study was convenience sampling. Then what is the framework of the analysis? So I had to be used tools, statistical tools were used for the study, weighted average method as well as the chi-square method. So the limitation of the study. The sample is only for the limited in the 100 retailers, and the period of the study was limited in the 1 month. A study has been restricted to the Madambakam in Chengalpattu district. So that is the limitations of the study for my topic. So findings of the study. So first you want to be distributions of the samples based on the variables. That is between the variables. What is the variables? It is that it is the variables between the demographic as well as the retailers. So there is significant difference between the gender and the performance of the retailers. There is a significant difference between the family, and there is a significant difference between the education and number of years as well as the locality. So this is my findings of the first category. Then next one. So suggestions of the study. The government should take action to create the awareness about GST to retailers, consumer goods, through the seminars on media. Then facility should be provided for revised GST return. Then reduce the rate of interest for late payment of GST. And necessary steps should be taken by the government to increase the number of customers. So that is some conclusions. That had been concluded that implementation of goods and service tax in India plays an important role. So it is a main important role. The retailers will be only close to the public, the consumers also. So who are the consumers to consume the goods? So who are the person to be consuming the consumers? So the consumers is a close relations only for the retailers, not in the wholesalers as well as the manufacturer. So I had to be concluded that the study reveals that the impulse development in retailers consumers goods on GST, especially type of the GST returns and tax rate of the goods and services. So it increased overall profitability and revenues of the retailers also. So GST will increase the GDP growth of our country in future and will increase the revenue of the government. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Satya, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So you
Sir?
for your study to collect the data, structured questionnaire you use, So what are the scale? How many type of scale
5-point
you use?
scales.
5-point scale. What are
Yes, sir.
Okay, ma'am. But I think the GST conceptual framework is not there in your study. So conceptual framework is needed now. So it is very important to explain the particular main point of the particular paper.
Okay, sir. Okay, but my PPT is not visible on that. Sir?
No. Your conceptual framework is needed. But this
Yes,
is not
sir.
your conceptual. Yeah. So this is my small assessment. You have to improve in future your paper.
So I'm not here with your voice, sir. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Are you audible?
Yes, sir. But your voice is very low, sir.
Yeah, yes. The conceptual framework is missing in your paper, ma'am. So you have to mention in future your paper because
Yes, sir.
GST, is in India is a new one. So you have to mention the detailed message in the GST. Okay, so anyway, your presentation is very good, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And
Thank
the
you,
next
sir.
presenter, V. Shubha. Shubha, ma'am. Ma'am, V. Shubha, ma'am. Shubha, madam. Okay, I'll move on to the next presenter, Dr. C. Jayashree, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Are you ready with the presentation?
Yes, sir. I'm ready with my presentation.
Yes, you can present, ma'am. You can present, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Jayashree, ma'am.
Yes, sir. I'm ready with my presentation. Sharing my screen.
Yes, ma'am. You can share your screen.
Is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, it is clear, ma'am. You can start, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. So very kind of all of you for patiently waiting for during the lunch time. So being the day 2, I present myself, Dr. Jayashree from Satisai Institute of Higher Learning, on the topic a study on fintech services, which is transforming the traditional banking system into an inclusive growth perspective. So to go further, I have listed out the schedule as follows. And the purpose of the study is that even though the digitalized economy has been transforming the industry 5.0 into a greater level as we all pushing ourselves towards the technology, and COVID pandemic is one important reason that has made people to, whether voluntarily or by force, converting their transaction services from cash to digital payment. And when you see the data, recent data from Indian statistical data, which shows that 32.3% of the people, which is in the second row, third point, 32% of the Indian population are using their banking and mobiles and internet for banking and financial services, which is highly poor in an overall perspective. And to have a financial inclusive perspective, rural people are yet to be tapped. There are certain underprivileged people who need to get an exposure towards that so that they can get the benefit out of it. To tell especially the credit benefits which they get out of their loan process or the internet credit facility or credit rating which they might lose because of the digitalized economy that we are foreseeing now. So these privileges could also be scattered to this financially inclusive is the concern of this paper. So the main agenda of the objective is to find out what are the factors that influence the individuals to adopt such services of fintech, what makes them, what are the drivers in the sense what I am trying to say. And it is an attempt to find out the role of fintech services in transforming cash as a mode of payment. In fact, in India, cash is most prioritized for micro and middle retailers. That there is no doubt in it because we don't feel the difficulty when we had the depression over the previous years. But at the same time, the advancement also has to balance the economic development also. In that perspective, I'm just putting forth my point. And to understand how banks and fintech can work together in collaboration rather than in competitiveness, as RBI is coming forward more of this sandbox system. So this could help them to collaborate and work. So as we proceeded towards this topic, we had a lot of questions come forth. What are the major factors that makes a person or individual to adopt a fintech services? How could these factors make the usage of fintechs user-friendly for them? And where are the areas where banking and fintech can collaborate and boom their services, as many fintechs are coming as a entrepreneurial startups and many are failing also. So how this will help the beneficiaries of both fintech and also the financial institution and bankers. And I want to touch upon the underprivileged or unbanked population or the rural population, which needs this kind of services so that the economy on the whole, holistic growth can be generated. There are always plus minus on any technological advancement as it is disruptive in nature. But maybe we can try out, as 96% of the Indian economy is towards the technology enhancement, we should push ourselves towards a better development. So in this, the design has been quantitative analysis been structured to bridge the relation between the institution, consumers, and the technology adaptability. So as honor to the quantitative analysis research hypotheses were designed through review of literature, proper technology adopted technique, a model, TAM model. From based out of TAM model, variables, both endogenous and exogenous variables were identified, and primary data were pushed towards through snowball sampling method, and the process data were analyzed and findings were aimed to be achieved. So the internal factors and external factors which make an individual to take the stand towards fintech services or a third-party services to do their banking services were identified, and the basic descriptive statistics were done. Cross-tabulation was carried out to know the relationship between each variables, and the correlation was done on the construct which is forming out of those variables and ANOVA. And further to enhance our study, we try to build the same model to know which variable is much vulnerable towards the as a factor or a driver, which variable that drives the most. Out of our identified limited variable, we could make out through factor analysis, we group them and made it as ease of use, trust and safety, and the beliefs and benefits they enjoy, the rewards or whatever points they give out of the fintech services. But the limitation of this study, we could take only those people, as we did the data on a remote location, we could gather from the educated mass. So if we know what makes the living, the enjoying people as the beneficiary, then we can know what makes them to tap the market which is not being touched upon it. So that was the limitation of our study. So finally, I just put forth my Adanko. Using Adanko, we did the SEM model. So the three variables and the endogenous satisfaction, more than the external benefit or the perceived benefit which comes from social media or through word to mouth or from somebody else, the real benefit which is more is in ease of use and trust and safety. So if the fintechs or the banking or the RBI tries to enhance the usage parameters and make it more friendly, adoptable. Now we are having language friendly usage in our smartphones. So smartphone providers and also fintech services have to work in collaboration so that the benefit really reach the needed people. It could be maybe we can see visually handicapped people having voiceover in Samsung phone especially. So these kind of services, if this technology is going to bring in changes, then fintech can achieve its game and bank can revolutionize the transaction pattern. So in that, ease of use and trust and safety proves to be highly significant for us to enable the adaptability of fintech services towards it. So more than social media and other experts' advice, the usage pattern, internal satisfaction that they derive out of this is more. And the trust and safety which the cyber security or the ombudsman is going to provide them, protect them. Many of them are not aware of the ombudsman or how to use it. What is the measure is being given? How the customer is able to overcome the difficulty is has to be presented or to be reported so that the people who are going to face the problem also will come to know how they can overcome the difficulty rather than carrying the fear and not adopting to this technology. This is my suggestion to many of the stakeholders who are either the beneficiary who receive from the investor or customer point of view or from the beneficiary who are going to deliver the point of view from both ends. So the study doesn't stop with this. It just builds a sustainable development so that we can compete ourselves to the external world, that the digitalization is not a hindrance. It is going to be a positive role it has to play when we march towards the global market. So with that, I just conclude my presentation. I hope I have covered and give you the clear picture.
Okay, thank you, Madam. Jayashree, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So you know, use the primary and secondary data.
Yes, sir.
The primary data?
My primary data is a snowball sampling method using a structured questionnaire distributed to Google Forms.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. What are the problem is there, ma'am, in fintech technology at present, ma'am?
In collecting the data or in adopting the fintech? I couldn't get your question, sir, clearly. Is in adopting the technology or in collect?
You have no pinpoint to get the pin technology schemes any need, you know.
So the main out of our personal, we did some interview. Yes, sir.
Yeah, any pinpoint is needed.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, for every transaction, we could find out of our 221 respondents, we could find out around 80% of the people who are from Gen X, Gen Z are able to do. That means those who are 20 born after that. So the elders who are like 40 above, they are trying to adopt. So they need a helping hand from their grandchildren or their siblings. They need a helping hand. So that means if they get the guidance, I'm able to do because my son is helping, my brother is helping me out. So that means the ease of use is dependent upon some hand-on-hand training for them to use. So once or twice, if they get adopt to it, that means the training or the financial literacy has to be improved towards hand-on-hand training with a small group, vulnerable group, so that this can reach up to that. So if banks can try out with their customers, like how stock exchanges try to build the social awareness on stock market. So if banks try to build the social network, say if you go for a bank personally, people are there to ask how to deposit online, how to use Bank. So there are people who doesn't know this kind of ATM machine also they are not able to do without a third person help. So this is the major difficulty, but they are trying to adopt. They are ready to learn, but provided there are people to help them out. So this is my advice to the stakeholders.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
for,
sir.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next presenter, V. Shubha, madam. V. Shubha, ma'am. Are you there? Hello. Ma'am, you are muted, ma'am.
You're not audible, ma'am. Ma'am, I can start your presentation. I can start your presentation.
Shubha, ma'am?
Ma'am, have you joined, ma'am? But you are not audible, ma'am. We can't hear your voice.
What's your name? Hello, is it Valentina? Hello, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
You're audible. Are you ready with your presentation, madam?
Yeah. Can I start with the press?
Yes, yes, you can.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
I think somebody is sharing, sir.
Shubha, ma'am.
It says I'm seeing Subha's screen. You're viewing Subha's screen.
Shubha, ma'am, can you please wait, ma'am, for a few minutes because the next presentation is going on here. Shubha, ma'am, can you hear me? Hello. Hello, ma'am. Shubha, ma'am. Valentina, ma'am, you can.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
You can proceed. You can proceed.
Yeah, yeah.
But can you share your screen, ma'am?
Yes, sir. I'm sharing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, fine, ma'am.
Is it visible, sir?
Is it visible? You can go on the first page. Ma'am. Can you brief it very shortly, ma'am, so that we don't
Yeah.
have time to,
Shall I start, sir?
You can proceed, ma'am. You can proceed.
Yeah.
Finish.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. I'm Valentina, Assistant Professor, Stella Maris College. And my topic here is effect of green HRM practices on environmental performance. And this is a special study with respect to private sector banks, especially in Chennai city. And the two private sector banks which I have taken, but I have covered more number of branches are ICICI and HDFC. And with respect to the introduction part, let me start. We know very well in today's context, it is very challenging, and of course, environment and climate change are the most serious issue that is taking place. So therefore, change is very much essential and for the survival, and effort should be definitely be taken by banks for the purpose of environmental management. So banks are very much responsible for facing even national economic and development activities, being financial institutions. So they have to also resolve issues and various commitments. So hence, it is very essential to assume green HR practices into their banking operations. So therefore, as we know very well, green HR is a novel idea in management. And here it is, they are not only as banking environment, they are not only supposed to take care of profit, they're also socially responsible. So therefore, they need to focus more on sustainability, corporate sector responsibility, in addition to their profit. And it is now very, very essential to identify green programs in the workplace to promote social responsibility among employees. So it is not for the purpose of money that people come and employ, people are employed. It is for the purpose of social responsibility that also need to be inculcated in the minds of every employees who are employed in the organization. Therefore, it is very essential to promote sustainable uses, various practices, and that will definitely help for the attainment of economic progress as such. So definitely, what are the various practices that normally we can practice? Maybe by reducing the carbon footprint. What are the various carbon footprints that we can reduce? Maybe by printing less paper. Carpooling can be done. And then with respect to job sharing, telecommuting can be done. And video conferencing, interviews that now which we are practicing. And then coming to the objectives of my study, main focus is I have actually taken the practices only in private sector banks in Chennai city. And mainly to determine the relationship between HR factors affecting environmental issues. There are various HR practices that are to be taken into consideration with respect to environmental issues. And then the third one is mainly to analyze the environmental organizational performance which are need to be recognized by the organizational employees. What is the need here? As I already informed you, it is very important for, in order to maintain a sustainable environmental management, change is very much required for their operations, for the various banking operations as such. Therefore, the research paper very clearly has aimed to verify the relationship between green HR practices and environmental performance. So as I told you, bank is very essential, and banks are responsible for facing nation's economic and developmental activities, which will accelerate the nation's growth. Hence, of course, there is a need for this green HR practices to be followed in organizations, especially in banks. And also for further promotion, for further infrastructural facilities to be incorporated inside the organizations, green concept is a must, and that must happen to be a mission concept in the organization. And the next one is conceptual framework, where, as I already informed you, green workplace is very essential nowadays in the present scenario, environmentally responsible in order to be resource efficient and also socially responsible. It has to be cultivated in the minds of both employer as well as employee. And most firms, they have to use proper human resource management practices, mainly to stimulate the employees' performance. And of course, by giving more incentives and plans, it can be done. And definitely that will lead to environmental friendly practices for a sustainable use of resources. Definitely that will lead you to more efficiency, less wastage, and of course, improved job related attitude. The research methodology that I have concentrated here is, the study has actually used both secondary as well as primary data. And the study was conducted in Chennai city, as I already informed you. The sample for this is consisting of 300 managerial positions of employees of select private sector banks in Chennai. And what are those select private sector banks? It is HDFC and ICICI. And here the study has used a random sampling method, and I have distributed nearly 300, and out of 339 were discarded due to not being filled properly. So I have selected only 261 for my present thing. And out of these 261 for the analysis, the primary sector, I have actually used this Cronbach alpha, where the standard value is 0.7, where it is more than 0.7, which is 8.812. The same questionnaire was used for the final purpose for the study, and the value, in order to find out the validity and reliability of the instrument, the same instrument was actually used. And all the statements were based on Likert 5-point scale, from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And then these are the 4 hypotheses. Null hypothesis: green training and development do not significantly affect environment performance. Compensation and reward do not have any effect on perceived environment performance. Similarly, HR practice on the environmental affairs does not affect any perceived environmental performance. Similarly, the last one, employee engagement also will not have any perceived environmental performance. But in all these cases, when I calculated the value, especially the p value, it all has come to less than 0.01. So that was the proposed null hypothesis was rejected. The first one, whereas employee engagement, it does not have any perceived. So here it is confirmed that the green employee engagement influences environmental performance. Similarly, in the second one also, compensation and reward, even they do not have, the null hypothesis say they do not have any significant effect. But the p-value has come to 0.1, which is less than the actual value. So here the null hypothesis was rejected and confirmed that green compensation and reward influence the perceived environmental performance. Similarly, training and development, that also have a was rejected, since it is less than 0.01, and it has a greater influence over the environmental performance. The last, even in HR practice, the on the whole HR practices, even that have a perceived environmental performance, that have a great influence towards the environmental performance. So as far as the findings and studies, so as I've already informed you, the study objective was to investigate the degree of impact of green HR practices on environmental performance in at least a few, I have taken two I have selected 2 private sector banks. So from the regression analysis, what I have understood is, from this green training, employee involvement, green recruitment, all these have a greater significant influence on environmental performance. So what are the suggestions that I can take is, you can actually provide environmental awareness to employees inside the organization, maybe conduct workshops, seminars, etc. Even include environmental criteria in the recruitment procedure. Then we can have orientation program for the newly recruits regarding the greening organizational bed, and also stressing the benefits of green organizational concept. Then conduct waste management programs inside the organization. Some of the organizations have already started, but there are organizations still not aware of it. So both employer and employee need to play a very important role in this. Similarly, encourage employee involvement in the green practices and policies in the organization. Create a separate team so that they will lead the entire organizational campus. Eco-friendly programs can be conducted, adapted, and thus you can implement a very great and a green manufacturing process inside the organization. And what I wanted to conclude, it is very obvious from this various research that I have done is green practices have a significant influence on the environmental performance. Therefore, it is the need of the hour for every managers, especially HR managers inside the banking organization, need to develop and must implement appropriate green HR practices, policies, which will greatly impact environmental performance that will have a suitable and an environmental sustainability. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Ma'am, I have one question. Hello, are you hearing, ma'am?
Yes, I am here, sir, but I'm finding it little not so audible. That's why I'm. Yes, sir. You can continue, sir.
Okay, madam.
Yeah.
The green human resource practices we need from the public sector banks and the private sector banks. But why, ma'am, I select only the private sector bank, particularly I see.
Actually, for the convenience of sampling only, I selected. So we have more number of branches here with respect to this, and it was very easy for me to find it through my friends and my colleagues and my husband. So all these were the main reasons why I chose these two banks. And I also have friends there, so that's why I was able to find out informations relevant to the green HR practice. To be frank, there is no green HR practices, but the government also need to play a greater role in this green HR practices, because this is the need of the hour. The younger generation, especially the Z generation, need to be educated with respect to all these practices. That is the reason why basically I individually selected this particular topic.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next presenter, V. Shubha, madam. Shubha, ma'am. Shubha, ma'am.
Ma'am, line la irukkinga? Okay, thank you, sir. Nice to meet you, sir.
You are not audible, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Audio illa edume varala. Neenga online la irukka mariye kaatla.
No, ma'am, irukkinga, but presentation edhu varale. Oru nimisham vaanga.
இப்ப கேக்குறதா? ஓகே சார். தேங்க்யூ சார். தேங்க்யூ ஸோ மச். Sir, is my screen visible? my screen visible, sir?
No, ma'am, no. You can share your
Okay.
paper.
Sir, shall I continue?
Yes, you can start. Now.
Okay, sir. Yeah, very good afternoon to all of you. I am Subha. I am presenting reformulation of financial statements as a prerequisite for business valuation. This is my research paper, and I humbly thank each one of you and AM Jain College for giving me this opportunity. Myself and my guide, Dr. R. Samundishwari, she is from ABC Mahalakshmi College. Both of us are the authors for the paper. Okay, so introduction. Basically, we know the business valuation has become the buzzword today, and it has propelled the organizations to go for IPOs at high premium rates. All that we read from the daily newspapers. And moreover, we know that valuation is also a basis for a sanctioning of loans for lending institutions, purchase of shares, for even for employees, for everyone. This valuation is very, it's a key word, and it's very, very important. And as such, valuation it is a process of arriving the value of both tangible assets as well as intangible assets. But here, the main thing what I want to, the scenario which we face here is this valuation is being done on a basis where there is the financial statements are not they are not regarded, or they are not taken in the proper sense. Okay, so these financial statements have to be properly viewed. So a new way of viewing the financial statement is my idea of presenting the paper. Okay, so the next one. So problem definition. So in this, the main source of data is, we all know, for each and every valuation, for any type of valuation, or for that matter, whatever method of valuation be, we know the data, the main source of data is from financial statements. But in this financial statements, we know income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statements. So all these form the financial statements. In these financial statements, one has to understand that these operating items or non-operating items are not segregated clearly. Okay, so whatever logical conclusions which we infer from these financial statements becomes very difficult. Okay, they are not, they do not give the right, they may not give the right meaning. So since valuation of becomes indispensable at different stages of business life, this valuation has to be more authentic and credible. Okay, so for which the segregation of these items are necessary. Okay, so for the intention of this paper is to deliberate on the items in the financial statements and the relationship existing between each of the items and between the financial statements. Okay, next, objective of the study. There are basically, I have given 3 objectives. One is, first of all, highlight the inappropriate information that is taken into account while valuing a business. Then segregate all the accounting aids in the balance sheet and the income statement into operating and financial through a reformulation approach. The third one is to bring out the drivers connecting these financial statements. Why should I study this? What is the need of the study? And all of us know these financial statements are basically formulated in the on the basis of a GAAP, that is generally accepted accounting principles, the accounting standards of India, or Indian or international accounting standards, and the Securities and Exchange Commission of each and every particular each and every country, whatever rules they put. Based on this only, all these financial statements are made. But these financial statements, again, as said earlier, they include both operating as well as non-operating. So as a business analyst or as an investor, the financial statements are analyzed in totality in finding the value of the business. So segregation is necessary. Why segregation is necessary? Because valuing the core activity, that is the operating activity, is more essential than valuing the financial activity. Okay, so based on that, so one's own core activity will become the operations of that business. Valuation of the core activity becomes predominant. So, or rather, the business should be, or the valuation of the business should be done based on the operations done in that particular business. Valuation of business should mean valuing the core activity. So the correctness of the data used in the process of valuation is a prerequisite for the accurate valuation. So since the data is mixed, both operating and financials are mixed together, there is no, the correctness of data is not accurate. So we have to segregate this data into operating and financial. Research methodology which I've used here is exploratory research. This is a new approach. It is totally a new approach, but this segregating the financial statement into operating and financial is totally a new approach, which is not viewed by the company so far. So I have basically I have done on the secondary data only. So the main book that I have taken upon is Stephen Penman Financial Statement Analysis. He has advocated this approach. So based on that only, I have done this research paper. So starting with the research analysis, so I have done the reformulation for the income statement, balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. So I'll just highlight the reformulated income statement alone. Okay, I mean, whatever reformulation has been done in the income statement, I'll just highlight that. So in the income statement, the reformulation is basically done on segregating operating and the financial. The main highlight of the reformulated income statement is the tax which is generally reported in totality for both the financial income and the operating income is segregated, and basically the tax savings which is got on the interest expense, is separated, and the tax on the operating income alone is shown separately, and the tax benefit on the financial expense is deducted from the financial income. So the benefit which is from the financial tax benefit which is from the financial expense, which is generally or which is put together in the income statement, is separated. In the normal income statement, it is put together. This is now separated, and the tax benefit is given separately under financial income. So this is the highlight of the reformulated income statement. Next one, reformulated balance sheet. Under the reformulated balance sheet, the assets and the liabilities are divided into operating and financial separately. And we can see, you can see it on the screen. The liabilities and equities as financial assets minus financial obligation is net financial obligation. On the operating assets minus operating liabilities will give you net operating assets. So generally we have on the financial obligations are more than the financial assets. That is why it is called net financial obligations. And generally operating assets are more than the operating liabilities. So that is why it is called as net operating assets. And moreover, again, I want to point out what the operating assets and operating liabilities mean something to do with the operation, something to do with the core activity, which is something like stock, inventory, plant and machinery, etc. Financial assets means those investments which is made by the company in other companies, in other subsidiary companies or in other companies as a way of shares or debentures, etc. So those are called as financial assets. Same way, financial obligations are nothing but the borrowings made by the company by way of debt. Okay, it could be debentures or loans, bank loans, etc. Okay, so on one side we have net operating assets, on the other side you have net financial obligations and common stockholders equity, which is nothing but equity share capital and the preference share capital if it is there. So both put together, so it becomes total claims on one side and net operating assets on the other side. So NFO plus CSC is equal to NOA. NFO plus CSC is equal to NOA. The next one, reformulated statement of cash flows. Again, we can see here in the normal cash flow statement, we have operating activity, financing activity, and investment activity. But here, this investment activity will not be seen here explicitly. Investment activity has been segregated into two, as one portion which clubs with the operation and another portion which clubs with the financing. Okay, so here we have operating cash flow. It is cash flow from from operations minus cash investment is called free cash flow. And this with this free cash flow, a concern or a company is able to pay its dividends and the interest on debt. So it is C minus I is equivalent to D plus F. This is the reformulated statement of cash flow. Yeah, so the next one is connecting the dots. So cash flow statement, opening cash flow statement, ending, you start with the cash flow statement and you have the opening balance sheet and the closing balance sheet. So opening cash balance plus change in the cash will give you the ending cash balance. Similarly, opening common stock equity plus the net income will go to the owner's equity at the end. So this is you're connecting the dots. So you're connecting the cash flow statement, balance sheet, and the income statement. The next one is I'm connecting here the capital market and the producer and the input market. So from the capital market you get the finance, and with that finance we invest it in operating assets and the financial assets. The income which is in the by using the operating assets you generate revenue, and with the revenue that is generated you pay back the capital market, that is the fund providers, the debt holders and the shareholders. So elaborately to put it here, the main equation which can be derived from the above diagram is called the cash conservation equation. And this cash conservation equation is you can even call it as a cash identity because it says that free cash flow is nothing but operating income. From the operating, what is operating income is nothing but operating revenue minus operating expense. From that you minus the operating assets, then you will get free cash flow. This free cash flow is what is distributed to the dividend as dividend to the shareholders and interest to the fund providers, that is the loan providers. Okay, so the misconceptions are broken here. Two misconceptions. One is the misconception of operating income provides for dividend distribution is broken here. Even the net financial income can also can lead to payment of dividend. The second misconception is even by borrowing, even by increasing the financial obligations, one can pay dividend. So just because a company is paying dividend, it doesn't mean that company is doing well. It could even be borrowing and paying the dividend, or it could be paying it from its financial income. Then the driver of net indebtedness, that is what is behind the indebtedness. So behind the net indebtedness, you have two things. One is, hello?
Can you hear me?
One is net financial expense and net dividends. So net financial, yes? Hello?
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am?
Yes?
Ma'am, can you please go to the conclusion, ma'am?
Go to the
concluding slide.
Yes, I'm not able to hear you.
No, ma'am. Can you please move to the conclusion part of it, ma'am?
Yeah, fine. No problem. Yeah, conclusion. So basically the conclusions and findings is, so normally what we follow under GAP approved financial statements is not correct. So we have to we have to reformulate the income statements and the balance sheet and the cash flow statement, which would give a better picture, and the value generated by way of product market will enrich the shareholder, not the value created by the financial market. This is my conclusion.
Thank you, Ms. Vibha, ma'am. Ma'am,
Okay.
Personally, I read your paper. The paper was quite interesting. I've gone through the complete paper and I've found it very, very interesting, and your presentation is also very good. Thank you for your contribution towards this topic, ma'am, because it's completely a new approach.
Yes.
I think if possible, you can put as a chapter in a book also. To that extent, the paper was quite interesting. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay.
Now it's time to wind up the session. I would like to call upon Dr. Suja to give over further.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to all. It's indeed a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks. On behalf of the School of Commerce and Management, I would like to thank Dr. R. Muthuswamy for being the chairperson for this session. I thank the faculty members, Dr. R.S. Anantarajan, Dr. Nirmala Raghavan, and Professor E. Prasad for making this online session a great success. I also thank all the online participants for this session. My special thanks to Dr. Fatima Diana Nancy for rendering her valuable support to make this session a grand success. Last but not the least, I wholeheartedly thank Professor E. Prasad for his valuable technical support for all the online sessions. Thank you, one and all.